what point did you guys ask Amine to be a part of the group? What was, because he was performing with you on a couple of shows, but what was it that made you, I guess, get him to be a greater part of your recording process, and just the group in general?
We had been like considering that happening, and we had been writing music together on the road, but I mean, still didn't know if he was going to obtain his permanent residency in Canada. So if he was going to get deported, it would, you know, it's not a smart idea to get into a relationship with somebody, you know, it's going to move away. So once he found out that he got his permanent residency, it was like, all right, let's get married.
I feel like we actually did it before that, though.
But it was. I think that was like in play. Well, I think that was in play though, and I got an extension around that time or something like that.
Right, it was extension.
But then because I didn't actually get the residency right at that time, but I got an extension for it, and then that's a whole nother story because that continued forever.
But when we weren't sure about his residency, which was like last summer now, or maybe even
Summer
later,
before last.
we had said like it was at that point that we would actually go wherever we needed to keep him in the band.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
That was nice to hear.
I think when we decided to add Amine, we had just know that he added so much value to the group that it would be silly to keep him on as just for performances. It's great for our group dynamics. He's also really, really good at all of the kind of admin stuff that we don't get to like tell you guys about. The behind the scenes stuff is independent act, and like it's been just, oh my gosh,
and he's
so
like a
helpful.
better musician than all of us, or than both of us combined.
Flattery will get you everywhere.
So,
just when this interview's over, I'm just gonna get harangued.
You know how they say you shouldn't be, or like you should be the worst. If you're a guitarist, you should be the worst guitarist in the band. I'm the worst guitarist in the band now. So
Mikey's super hard on himself. We all three of us together make a really good team.
No, it's good because I get better. So I'm like, I know Amine's just fiending to replace me all the time.
Because beforehand, you were doing a project called Simple Machines, right?
You did your research, eh?
Yeah. So when you moved from doing that to working with IMUR, I guess what was that shift like for you?
At first, when I first started playing with them, I just had a kind of like a little pedal. It was a loop pedal, and I just had my violin and my bass plugged into it, and thinking about how that probably sounded. It's probably not very good. But then actually after going on tour with them for the first summer before I joined, Mikey started showing me some of Ableton, and I remember being really blown away by it. And then I actually lived across the street from him at the time, and so he would do these things called the huddle, which were kind of not really regular but fairly frequent meetups with a group
I did
of
it
producers.
once a month. It was regular for me.
I feel like it dropped off pretty quick after
it
I
did.
started
Yeah,
going
it
though.
did,
Yeah. But I would go there, and then I would also just go and pick his brain. Like, hey man, I've been working on this track and I play it for you. And he would, he'd coddle me. He'd be like, yeah, that's pretty, yeah, that's good. You should think about doing this. In his head, I'm sure just being like, oh my God.
No.
But either way, so I learned so much and just got really into Ableton. And then that's when we kind of integrated two Ableton set. And it was a really steep learning curve, so it was really painful at first. But then that got us kind of to where, not got us to where we are now, but that kind of helped like make the sound a lot cleaner and clearer. And I could play the live bass and get those nice thick bass tones. And then combining that all with like all of the different techniques that we're using electronically now, it was a really nice steady progression. It kind of like looking back, I wouldn't have wanted it to go any other way, at least personally speaking. So
okay. So when you were performing, I guess, with Simple Machines as that project, what was that like?
A lot of cables still. I usually had like a little mini mixer, my loop pedal, which had effects on it, and then I would usually bring like a microphone, sometimes guitar, electric guitar, classical guitar, and a violin. And then when I started doing sets with Ableton, God, I can't believe I did that. I would bring a bass, an electric guitar, a violin, a keyboard, and then sometimes little like MIDI pads and things like that. So was just trying to do everything. And then as time went on, I realized you just should probably appear to be doing everything while doing as little as humanly possible.
As little as humanly possible for the maximum entertainment provided.
100%. But that's why I said appear like you're doing as much as possible. It was just, I looked like a river dancer. I was
concentrating really hard.
Yeah, it just was ridiculous. So
moving around a lot, I guess, with all that equipment.
Mhm.
So having 3 people on stage is a lot easier.
give and take with
We
that.
still have a lot of gear.
Mhm.
Yeah, we do.
So as for, you released your debut album last year, Little Death. What was it about the song Little Death that made you decide that was going to be the album title? Was it something that stuck out about it, or?
Yeah, Little Death is actually Le Petit Mort in French, which alludes to basically that feeling that you get post-orgasm. So kind of that spiritual release. We thought that fit well with our music, especially on that album. It was very experimental, sensual,
Psychedelics and sexy.
yeah. Yeah, and specifically that song. That song is just basically a giant metaphor for orgasm.
And so going along with the theme of the album, I guess, I think I read somewhere that you had, like, the themes were more about, like, sexuality, love, and you experienced a severe car accident as well. What was it, I guess, about having that experience that inspired the way that you were writing for the album?
I think when kind of trauma or tragedy ensues, a lot of truth can come out of that. And I think that's where a lot of that album stemmed from. It was kind of just like, there's no need to kind of hide behind anything. You're able to connect deeper with people when you share your experiences from a more candid perspective. And I think that's where that all came from.
Okay. And earlier you mentioned kind of about having those influences of Salt and Pepper, like having the sexuality aspect of it. What does it mean for you having that incorporated in what you're writing?
That's a good question. I think that in general, our music encompasses that, even when we don't try to. I think, again, just because we are influenced by that R&B and soul, and that's generally very smooth and sexy, vibey feelings. So I think that it just, those sounds, those tones influenced this vibey, sexy stories.
Is there anyone that you're listening to right now that's influencing what you're making now, I guess?
Yeah, you guys want to?
Yeah, tons. Just trying to think about what making now means, because we're we've just finished a record and we're working on the one to follow that up at the same time as releasing this one. So we've been listening to Oshi, Muramasa, Potato Head people, kind of like all the people that did really well on SoundCloud as SoundCloud really came to fruition, and we've watched them mature as artists and seen some of their songs grow into real either pop smashes or just even genre defying beats kind of thing. So trying to follow in their footsteps, I guess, those SoundCloud producers.
For this album that you said that you've completed now and you're writing a new album already, you guys went to Montreal last summer and did a bunch of writing and recording over there. What was that experience like compared to in Vancouver?
Vancouver and Montreal are very different in a lot of ways. The cultural makeup, the way that culture is supported and expressed, the living expenses, so the number of people who are musicians or creative people and how they can live their lives and base it around, cheaper rent and food and those kinds of things. There's hills, there's not really mountains. It's landlocked where we were for the most part. and it gets really humid and hot in the summer. So pretty much culturally and landscape wise, polar opposites. But that means at midnight you can go out and get a bite to eat on a Tuesday and then go to a bar, and it's full of people listening to this is actually a thing that I went to on Tuesday. I just walked into a random bar at 1:30 a.m. and they were doing this jam-packed, and they were doing a jazz improv session around pop songs. They brought 5 musicians together. They had 1 hour to practice beforehand, 5 jazz musicians, and they just gave them the sheet music for 8 famous jazz and pop songs, and they just had to on the spot do renditions of it along with a singer and everyone. And that happened, like, I went to a bunch of stuff like that.
Things you will never find in Vancouver.
Yeah, that are just maybe once a month.
Oh, I was talking about people at music venues. I'm just kidding.
Well, everything closes here really early.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, that actually just changed though. The city or the municipality just changed the laws so that you can have live music until 1 a.m. now.
Really?
So I didn't realize that the hard cutoffs for live music at 10:30, 11 were actually bylaws that were causing that to happen. I thought it was just a monetary thing because DJs are cheaper, but so that'll all be changing, which is awesome.
That's awesome. I'm not surprised though. Yeah.
But sorry, go ahead. Yeah.
That's okay. I think one of the other things about Montreal is that we didn't know a lot of people there. So we were able to just kind of cocoon up a bit. And that's kind of why we went there, was to get away from all of our comforts of being here. And just, we're busy when we're here, which is great. But it was nice just to get away and not be busy and have that time and that space to ourselves to get to know each other a lot better from living and working together every day. But also just to get to spend all that time on the music.
Pate baguette and brie. Mm.
The food there too.
Yeah, I think I gained like 20 pounds.
For sure. Yeah, we had like a 3-week, 1-month check-in where we were both, Mikey and I were like, yeah, maybe we should stop on the cheese and the beer for just a couple weeks.
Did you guys do a lot of walking around there? Because I know Montreal is quite a walkable city.
Yeah, we were always walking.
We got bikes too.
Oh yeah, we all bought bikes, which was really sweet.
They have a really good public, like the Shaw bikes here that they just put in. They have a really good system there, and it's quite cheap. I was paying like $30-$40 a month, and you just use the bikes wherever you go. There's stations all over town, and next to the metro system's really good. It's probably easier to bike on the sidewalk than it is to drive your car on those roads.
Oh my gosh, yeah. The roads are awful there because the rumor is that the mafia withholds all of the money that should be going back into maintenance of the city because they control a lot of the money that comes in and out of Montreal. So no road work gets done in Montreal. It's like the worst. I've seen much better roads in Nicaragua.
They actually had an official, like provincial, I believe, or like a municipal inquiry into that, where they were demanding like an independent commission of citizens and politicians to look into that because it was so crazy for so long. So, yeah.
So yeah, our music, we ended up being really inspired. Like Amine said, they had a really great jazz scene there specifically. And we were listening to a lot of Hiatus Coyote and Robert Glasper at the time. So we started to just jam a lot more, and like our music did become very jazzy.
Yeah, we were like practicing jazz standards every day and that kind of thing.
Yeah, which you can hear some of that on the upcoming album, but we did cut back a lot when we moved back, because then we were like, wait, oh no, we're not a jazz band, and that doesn't make sense for us to do that. But it was cool just to like, learn that and become more inspired by that. But yeah, it didn't quite make the cut, but it was still fun to do and experiment with. For sure.
Did you have any songs that I guess were written with, I guess, impacted by your time in Montreal?
Yes.
Tons. All of them.
And that carries through even to the titles, and the title of the album as well is very heavily influenced by our time in Montreal.
I think if you listen to when the intro track on the new EP that will start coming out soon, that's the only track that essentially is untouched from the original format that we played it in. Everything else, there's a couple that are, you know, pretty directly, you know, like should be, but that's still, if you saw the mutations of that track over time and you went back to the original one, you'd probably agree with us that it's better we put it out this way.
You'll spot the jazz.
Okay.
Yeah.